A very good morning to my dear students. Students, in the previous video, we were studying about reproduction in plants, and we have studied about asexual reproduction and various methods of asexual reproduction. Now, in this part of video, we will study sexual reproduction in plants. Okay. First of all, I want to again tell you the kind of reproduction in which two parents, that is a male parent and a female parent, are involved is known as sexual reproduction. और जो offspring produced होता है, it has both the features of both the parents. Now, in sexual reproduction, male and female individuals are required, and each of them, they produces reproductive cells which are known as gametes. दोनों जो हैं मेल और फीमेल, दे प्रोड्यूस reproductive cells जिसको हम gametes कहते हैं. That gametes, they get fused to form a zygote, or when these gametes fuse with each other they form a zygote. फिर zygote जो है वो further divide करता है and it get developed into a new individual, and the offspring which is produced is different from both the parents, but it has characteristics of both the parents. Or in plants, flowers are the main organ for sexual reproduction. Now let's recall the various parts of flower. Now the various flower parts, they are arranged as uh, the outermost part, it consists of sepals which are usually green in color. Okay, they are just like leaf, they are green in color. And the second part is the second part after sepal is petals which are colored. Okay, they are the colorful part of the plant. Now there are male sex organ which is known as stamens. They form the third part, and each stamen, it has a long thin filament like structure, and with an elongated sac which is known as anther. Okay, and the anther, it has pollen sac which contains a fine पाउडरी पॉलन ग्रेन्स. तो मेल सेक्स ऑर्गन स्टेमन होता है, एंड स्टेमन में एक लॉन्ग फिलामेंट होती है, थिन फिलामेंट होती है, और जो जिसके एंड पे एंथर प्रेजेंट होता है, उस एंथर के अंदर पॉलन सैक होता है, एंड पॉलन सैक के अंदर पॉलन ग्रेन्स प्रेजेंट होते हैं. एंड द फीमेल सेक्स ऑर्गन, इट इज़ कॉल्ड पिस्टल, एंड इट हैज़ अ स्टिकी स्टिग्मा. इसके अंदर स्टिग्मा प्रेजेंट होता है. A long tube like structure which is known as style. एक swollen part होता है इसमें lower end पे which is known as ovary, and ovary, it is attached to thalamus which from at the base of the flower, and ovary में बहुत सारे ovules present होते हैं, and ovules, they contain female gametes. Okay, and pollen grains, they contain male gametes. And flowers having both stamens and pistils, they are known as complete or bisexual plant flower. Like mustard, rose, petunia, they are bisexual flowers. And flower, they contain either pistil or stamen, is an incomplete flower or unisexual flower, like corn, papaya, cucumber. Okay, now next we come to pollination. Pollination is an important part of the life cycle of a plant. Okay, जो ट्रांसफ़र होता है pollen grains का from male anther to female stigma. ठीक है, the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of a flower is known as pollination. Means pollen grains, they are transferred from anther to stigma. It can be transferred to the in the same flower, or can be different flower. Okay, and pollen grains, they are transferred by wind, water, insects. Okay, if pollen grains, they land on stigma of the same flower, अगर उसी plant की ही stigma पे it goes, it is known as self pollination. अगर cross होता है, means pollen grain, they are transferred from anther of one flower to stigma of another plant, that flower of another plant, then it is cross pollination. And the process of fusion of male and female gametes, that is when pollen grains they fall on the stigma, जब pollen grains stigma पे fall करते हैं, चाहे वो सेम फ्लावर है चाहे वो डिफरेंट फ्लावर है, एक स्मॉल pollen ट्यूब ग्रो होती है फ्रॉम द pollen grains, और ये जो pollen ट्यूब है इट ग्रोज थ्रू द स्टाइल एंड रीचेज द ओवरी. एंड व्हाट हैपन्स, जैसे ही वो ओवरी तक pollen ट्यूब पहुंचती है, द मेल गैमीट्स फ्रॉम द pollen grains it reaches the female gamete in an ovule. They fuse with both get fused and they form a zygote, and the process of fusion of male and female gametes to form a zygote is known as fertilization. After fertilization zygote grow करता है into an embryo, और ये जो ovule है it develops into the seed and ovary develops into the fruit. Pollination, it can be done by many agents like pollination by wind. जो भी flowers होते हैं they are pollinated by winds, and pollination by water, मतलब जो pollen grains हैं they are carried by water to the stigma. Then the pollination can be done by insects also, means insects they sit on, they are attracted towards brightly colored flowers, petals of flowers, sweet odor, they sit on the flower, and that pollen grains they stick to the their body, and when they sit on another plant they transfer the pollen grains to stigma of another plant. Next is seed dispersal. The carrying away of seeds from one place to another is known as seed dispersal. Seeds they are dispersed by from one place to another, okay, and they can be dispersed by wind, water, they are carried by the animals, birds. And seed dispersed by wind are light, because seeds they are light, which are light in weight, they have wings or hairs, so they are easily blown away by the wind. Then some seeds they are dispersed by water, they have spongy or fibrous outer covering, so they can float on water. Seeds are also dispersed by animals. What happens, some animals they eat or bird they eat fruits along with the seeds, and the seeds remain undigested, they are sent out along with excreta, or they can be carried they some seeds they have spines or hooks, and they get attached to the body of animals, animal की body के साथ attach हो जाता है, and they are carried away from one place to another. And some example of seeds which are dispersed by water, they are drumstick grasses, seeds of maple, cotton, they are dispersed by wind. And the example of plants whose seeds are dispersed by water, they are coconuts, lotus fruit, okay. Some seeds which are dispersed by animals are xanthium plants, okay, they have hooks and burrs on them.